Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are closing in on the last week of the summer transfer window where, look, are we in panic mode? For some, it feels like it. For others, this is Daniel Levy's time where normally he just gets going. We'll let you be the judge of that. If it was the very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're as adaptable as Thomas Rank right now in terms of our wonderful returning guest to Last One on Spurs. We're handing debuts out as we go, quite literally in the building. Literally. Let's bring in our panel alongside me, which he has been a lot through this transfer window, here, there, and everywhere. He was almost in tears at the Etihad. He was so emotional by Thomas Frank Ball. Johnny Hamme is back. Johnny, lovely to see you, mate. How are you?
I'm all good. Can you hear that noise? Silence,
yeah.
No. Yeah.
Is that what it sounds like at Tottenham?
Yeah. Dust bowl. Driving in. Meanwhile, down at the Emirates, yeah.
I don't want to go on to there. Also back on the show twice, 3 times in a week. We've got the wonderful Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. Luke, love to have you here. How are you, bud?
I'm not bad. Thanks again for having me on. Yeah, could do with a couple coming through the door, but we'll get into that one.
Amazing, mate. Thanks for having me back. And this is what I call a very, and we call it, Last Spurs is generally late Last One on Spurs. This is probably the latest debut I've ever had, confirmed in about 30 seconds. We've been talking throughout the summer. This man deserves to come on here. We're bringing all the Greeks as much as we can on here. Danny Kyriacou is back in his debut. Dan, love to have you here, bud. How are you, mate?
Thank you for having me, Ricky. It's been a pleasure. It's been, I think, a long time coming, man. But no, I'm good. I'm good.
Time speaking, we've been advancing, we've been edging, we've been negotiating. We've got this one over the line. We've got this one over the line.
We're even Spursy getting me on here, Ricky. Too much negotiating, too much time taking, wasting time.
Honestly, I tell you. Pleasure to have you here, Dan. Pleasure to have you here. Look, let's give you an update of where Tottenham have been the last 24 hours, 40 hours of this last transfer window since we've last brought to you. Obviously, we left you on the news that Spurs were looking at a deal for Hincapié. And we know Tottenham have admired the centre-back for a lot of this summer. He has been a target for Tottenham really throughout the last few transfer windows. And there were reports breaking in the morning that Tottenham had entered into talks with Bayer Leverkusen and were quite maybe confident they were going to try and get this deal done. Such as the nature as what Tottenham has been like over this transfer window, it does appear that as quick as Tottenham were entering talks, so were Arsenal. And it appears that Tottenham have been hijacked in their attempt to try and bring Hincapie to the football club. But we're bringing you the latest on that news. And does that mean it is at the end of that pursuit for Tottenham for the centre-back? We know he's been one of a number of targets Tottenham want to do in this transfer window. And, it doesn't really stop there for Spurs. We know there's been, again, a lot of interest in trying to bring Savinho to the football club. We understand Tottenham pressed Man City for an answer for the player today. And when we say today, this for the time of recording was on the Tuesday. Tottenham wanted to have a decision from City as to whether their bid, which is understood to be now in the region of over 70 million, would be accepted. So we're still waiting to find out the outcome of that new bid and whether City are going to accept it or are going to look to keep the player. I think we've made this very, very clear on the recent shows that Ferran Serrano, someone up very, very high up at Man City in the terms of the hierarchy there, is said to be the main blocker in terms of stopping that potential move to Tottenham. So look, we'll be bringing you that and more in this show. We have got updates also on this show in regards to Tottenham's pursuit of alternative 10s. Of course, they don't get what was, again, to be one of the key targets of this window. We know we've tried to go for Eze, tried to go for Gibbs-White. They've both been blocked so far. We're then kind of, at the moment, seeing a number of different alternatives out there. Nico Paz being one. We'll be bringing you the update on him as to whether he's still a viable target for Tottenham. Akilouche, again, a player that we know Spurs have got a keen interest in. Where are they on him? We've got another update to bring you with relation to that player. And Khannouss, I think, which was seen really, as we draw close to the window, as the one maybe Tottenham don't really fancy as much as the other ones. But maybe as we get closer and closer, this one does become more of a viable option for Tottenham. Just really on the basis that we're running out of time. We're running out of options. As much as we say maybe for Tottenham and Daniel Levy, he loves the last week of the window, we know how hard it is to get deals done. So look, we'll be bringing you that and more on this last one on Spurs. We want to say a massive congratulations to Richarlison. He has just been recalled to the upcoming Brazil squad. So massive congratulations to him. Fully deserved. And guys, look, if you are with us for the first time, you can obviously find us on a number of different audio platforms. We're across X, we're across Facebook. If you're watching the show right now on the playback, please, if you can, give the show a like, give the show a subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll be with you from now up until the very end of this transfer window. Luca at Spotlight Spurs is busy as well on his respective platform. So is Johnny, of course, on Football Inc. And Danny K pops up wherever Danny K will be. Quite literally in the fashion of Danny K, he just popped up here 30 seconds ago. That's the way to make a debut. Let's start, guys, if we can, with the news of Hincapie, because, Johnny, mate, we spoke this morning at 10:30 in the morning. And look, we're not going to lie about it. We both got very excited. You know, he's a player that Tottenham have courted for such a long time. So just so everybody understands what has happened with Hincapie over this last 24 hours before John comes in here, reports suggested this morning from Fabrizio Romano, Tottenham approached by Leverkusen for Hincapie with a new proposal. It was understood to be a loan deal with an obligation to buy around the region of 60 million euros, the same value as the release clause to be paid out from 2026. Now, it's been made clear from Hincapie's end he wants to leave Bayern Leverkusen, and Spurs actually reportedly started discussing personal terms. At the same time as that being fed for us, we then heard the news that Arsenal were then working on a deal to sign the centre-back. And this is dependent for Arsenal on the basis if they manage to move players out before the end of this window. Now, the key thing being here is the player is prioritising Arsenal above other clubs. That is a really critical thing to say. And I think what's also important to say is that Tottenham then, I think, listen, this is alleged, but a lot of journalists, you know, in terms of the National, started briefing that Tottenham are adamant they've had no contact, they've not put an offer in, they've got no interest in the defender. So it has had a very strange turn of events, this deal, because it's a player that we know Tottenham have been interested in. It's not been the one window, it's been several windows. Johnny, are we about to have been hijacked again by our rivals for what was looking to be a target for this window? And we know he's been a player that Tottenham have liked from previous ones.
I mean, what do we believe? ITKs are in the mud. You know, they're all throwing each other under the bus. You know, first of all, you had Romano saying it's, you know, got us all excited. I went to bed last night excited. I woke up even more excited. And then 10 minutes later, Alistair Gold said it's all rubbish. Then we had David Ornstein saying, yeah, he's leaving, but he's not going to you. He's going to Arsenal. You know what it's like? It's like one of those game shows when you go in for the game show and you go, and you wanted to win. This is what you could have won. This is what you could have won, right? But you open up the envelope and it's bloody empty, right? Morgan's Gibbs White. Oh, God. No, you haven't won Morgan's Gibbs White. What have you won? Nothing, right? The same with Eze, as Danny will testify. I kept the juices flowing with him. I was excited about that one and believing that it was going to get done right until the Wednesday morning. But again, it was nothing. Luckily, this one we only got excited for like a few hours.
It wasn't even a few hours. I think it was a few minutes.
It wasn't.
It was literally a few minutes.
Well, it came out about 11 o'clock at night that he was leaving, and then he might be. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And then in the morning, Alistair Gold, you know, bloody joy killer. 10 minutes he gave us.
Well, I mean, you know, Ali, bless his heart, he's one that I know people find
friend of the show, Alex. Friend of the show, Alistair. Sorry, no.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. I think Ali gets, you know, sometimes looked upon as being, you know, like I say, a joy killer there. But you know, I think we come to a point now where credibility of journalists in this transfer window, with all due respect to those that report deals out there, they seem to be becoming less valid by the day. But I think with Ali, you know, we've seen he's a consistent, obviously, presence. Obviously for Spurs, he's been around the last 10 years or so. Ali, he's obviously, you know, done such a great job in terms of understanding a lot of things that go on inside the club. So I feel like when Ali speaks, you kind of have to, you know, you do trust what he says because he's so closely understood in terms of the network as to what's happening at Tottenham. But Johnny, it's a big blow, right? Because I think we understand, look, the optics are, we know we want a 10. We know there's a keen interest in a winger. We know maybe the centre-back is one that's maybe seen as a favourable thing we'd love to do this window. But Hincapie has really been the only defender talked about as the one they really want. So how much is it a massive, massive blow by the news now? It does look like if he is to leave Bayer Leverkusen, it won't be to Tottenham. It's not going to be to Arsenal. But again, the key thing about this is they do need to get players out Arsenal before they bring players in. But again, it goes back to what Thomas Frank said at the weekend. He only wants players that are going to be here that want to play for the badge, want to wear the shirt. And I think, again, when you're hearing and being briefed that the player wants Arsenal, I think immediately we have to switch our attention elsewhere, Johnny. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that quote just makes me laugh. I only want people that want to come and play for the club. Well, if they don't want to sign, they didn't want to come for the club. So, I mean, it's, stating the obvious, really. But look, Hincapie, this is a player I saw a documentary about the Ecuadorian young squad, how exciting they were. Saw this about Hincapie and a couple of others, looked into it, watched it. So when the World Cup came around, I had my eyes on them, and Hincapie really caught the eye for me. And I've been a massive fan ever since. He can play at left centre back, he can play at left back, he can even play left midfield, left wing. He's a brilliant player, and he still feels like he's been around forever. Yeah, he's still only 23 years of age. I go as far as to say that Arsenal, with already the best defence in Europe, this takes them to even another level. Their strength in depth is just insane, and we had a fantastic performance on Saturday. It was unbelievable, but only a fool could look at that bench and think that this is going to be enough to get us through 2 games a week once the serious business gets going. And I just want to see Thomas Frank given the best opportunity. Ange Postecoglou was given plenty of ammunition, and he deserved it, like every manager has. Yep. But for some unknown reason, I just don't understand why we are treading water. We've had planning, and we should not be at the midnight hour at the dance, right? While everyone else, all the guys have been picking up all the hot birds, and we are like, everyone's got a bird and we're trying to find a 10, right? And all we can find at the moment are 5s and a couple of birds with no teeth. That's not what we want. We're looking for top. We're looking for 9s and 10s. And there aren't that many that will come to us or who will do business with us.
He knows where to draw an audience, doesn't he, Johnny? What way to draw an audience? It's going to be an intriguing next few days. I think we might come to a point where, to go with Johnny's analogy, we might have to settle for 4s and 5s if we can't get 8s and 9s. I mean, that's just the way the world works sometimes. But let's throw over to you, Luke. Again, we've made this point. Tottenham, we are leaving ourselves with a lot to do in these final 6 days of the window for our listeners and audio, where, look, I think we've said 2 really good performances under Thomas Frank so far. And, they've come with 2 clean sheets. They've come with goals being scored. They've come with a real structure, the way we're playing, a real decent, organised team. But we know, again, at the same time, that the objective that has been set by the hierarchy is they want the club, or they want the manager, to ensure the team can compete on all 4 fronts. And they went on to obviously say, again, the club in the long term want to win the Premier League. They want to win the Champions League. 2 faces through the door so far, Mohamed Kudus and, of course, João Palhinha on loan. We know, of course, to the moment, we lost Sonny to LAFC. James Maddison's out with an ACL. Dejan Kulusevski's out for what looks like to be the turn of the year. Frank has admitted, numbers-wise, that the one he's inherited in terms of the squad is maybe similar when you think about it. He's lost 2. There's 2 that's come in. But the key thing's being, again, the fact we know they want a number 10. We know they want the winger. The centre-back one maybe was more of a favourable idea. But by the fact that we appear to have gone in for him, Luke, then it looks like Arsenal are going to beat us to his signature. How deathly disappointing is that, Luke? Just from, again, I know people laughed about the fact we said this the other night, the optics perspective. It just doesn't look good, Luke, does it? The fact that our North London rivals are going to steal a march again on another target just doesn't look good for us in terms of the planning of this window. We need to bring Luke off mute. We've got you, Luke.
No, of course not. Of course it doesn't. That's the worst case scenario, is that you get kind of beat again by your rivals. But the problem is for me as well, and Hincapie is a good player. I'm not debating that at all. But we, as Johnny's just alluded to already, ironically, we need a 10. That's exactly what we do need, or a left winger as well. So Hincapie was never going to be the priority for me in terms of what Spurs were looking for. So that's where it becomes difficult, because you're trying to sell yourself to these players. And he's sitting there, and Johnny's right. Their defense is absolutely incredible. But when Az is fit, so is Az. And it's almost like a really hard sell in terms of, you're not our number one priority. We've got other players that we're kind of looking at. You're the number one defensive priority. It's a lot of money, a lot of budget. So for me, it never really made 100% sense. Maybe if we'd already got the attacking option sorted, then maybe he was the next one in line. I get that. So I feel like it's quite a hard sell for players. And obviously it's terrible as a club that we keep missing out on these players. But the one thing I will say, and it's really me clutching at straws trying to find a positive here, is at least we're targeting players of this level now. And we're missing out to the other big teams. We're not targeting, most of the times we target players, we're going into that against the likes of Palace, your Wolves, and we're winning them, which is great. But actually, if other clubs and top clubs are not being linked to these players, maybe they're not the level that we need to be going for. So are we now going to be in a situation where we are targeting better players, and therefore we will miss out on more, which is horrible. But at least we are trying to get the deals done in the right sort of space in terms of quality of player. I'm hoping that that's now the standard that we're setting.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dan, bringing you in, because I know there's been a lot of conflicting reports as to whether Tottenham did or didn't go in for the player. I mean, it was quite interesting after Fabrizio announced that Tottenham approached Leverkusen for the player with a proposal. You know, again, it's not been the first time we linked with a player for this window. Again, he's been a target, just to be clear, on several occasions with Tottenham in several different windows. We've had this firm denial come out that Tottenham didn't ever put a bid in, haven't been interested. I mean, Dan, what do you make of the whole saga? We've not had a transfer that's not been a saga so far, have we, at the moment, mate? Nice one to ease you into, I guess.
Yeah, literally. I think Tottenham as a whole, it's never a boring day, is it? It's like, Ange couldn't have said it better himself last season. Aren't you entertained? So, I mean, it literally is an entertainment when it comes to Spurs. But in regards, what Luke just said is a really good point. And I actually was saying this the other day. The fact that we're going for a higher quality of player, I think it definitely shows that they want to try and improve the team with, well, better quality, and they're not just trying to get any other kind of like Johnny said, a girl with no teeth, basically. And I love that, but it's kind of like a little bit, can you get that feeling of that it's a bit pretend, right? Because yes, you're going for those players, but you're not actually acting in the way the big clubs would act to go and get those players. And what I mean by that is in the way what it seems on the outside, the way they're negotiating for the players, like the haggling, like the let's try and get as many pennies off the pound as possible. It's like if like two of the players that we've been linked with, for example, Hincapié, right? He's got a release clause of, well, reportedly he's got a release clause of 60 million euros, right? We've known about that for at least the beginning of the year, beginning of the summer, right? And Hincapie he's a player that we've actually been interested in for quite a number of years.
Yes.
So
correct.
the fact, and when you've actually looked at, like, just for example, the Arsenal fans, when they're like, I don't even know who this guy is. It's like, it just goes to show that the fact that they don't even know who he is, and Tottenham fans have been talking about him for many windows, right? And the fact that they've just gone in just like that, that's what's frustrating for fans. It's because we know that we need it. And I know Arsenal as a club, as a big club, they could say, yeah, we also need it, because they're trying to have depth, right? Strength and depth. And that's what all top clubs aspire to have. And that's what we should aspire to have too, if we want to be playing at that league of the table, right? And that kind of space in the table. So for me, it's just, look, the thing about what I smelt today when I saw the guy from the Mail, I can't remember his name, and
John Cross.
John
Cross in the Mirror.
Yeah, that's it. And I know Alistair Gold said it as well today about the player. Apparently, we weren't in for him, but then other reporters like Romano and the others are saying, no, we actually had a bid in, and some of them are even reporting that the bid actually got rejected. Now, to me, it does just smell like a really bit of like the club have told some of these reporters to say this because we don't want to look really stupid again. The fact that Arsenal have kind of hijacked another deal from us in the matter of a week with two big players, right? That Tottenham have been tracking. Again, as Eze, Tottenham have been tracking Eze since before he was at QPR, as Johnny well knows. So it's very difficult for Spurs fans to take that when you get excited, you kind of get excited, and all of a sudden, like your rivals have gone and just like that, just gone and got the deals done or about to get Hincapié, where it looks like. And I think that's where the frustration is for Spurs fans, because what we all want as Spurs fans, we all want our club to be as competitive as possible, to have the best players come to Spurs, so we can be entertained week in, week out, whatever competition that is in, so we can strive for better things. That's what we want to see. Like you said it the other night, Ricky, that we don't want to have to wait another 17 years to experience that night in Bilbao. Because for me, that was the best night I've ever had as a Spurs fan. That was unbelievable, and I wouldn't take back that whole season for that one night. I would not, because it was unbelievable. And I think every single Spurs fan would have felt the same on that night, right? And yeah, look, I'm this summer, right? I'm been so optimistic and positive, right? And you know me, Ricky, I've been really pessimistic when it comes to Levy and transfers in the past. And I thought, you know what? I'm seeing a few things differently. We've signed Khannouss quite early, and the fact we signed a class quality player, and then obviously the fact that we went in for Morgan Gibbs-White and literally pretty much nearly agreed that deal within a day, it was kind of like, okay, Spurs look like they're moving differently this summer, and it made me feel like finally something is changing. And then the fact that the owners come out and basically said we actually want to win a Premier League and a champion, try compete for the Champions League, which is something that they've never done in 25 years at this club. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it the benefit of doubt now. And it's just kind of like, I'm a very positive person in my life, but then Spurs always try to find the every way possible to bring it into something negative. And it's so annoying because, but it's just, that's kind of how it is at the moment. And I'm still optimistic that we're going to sign one player, at least one player. We have to.
Well, I mean, Jordan, I agree with you on that. I mean, I want to have the optimism, but at the moment there is that concern there that, you know, for whatever reason, these last few weeks, it's concerning that, you know, we get laying that groundwork on players and we're just not getting them over the line. I mean, I think when we're looking at the centre-back situation at the moment for Tottenham, obviously the concern would be that we know that Romero and Van der Ven, just to come over and finish on this subject, you know, they missed out on a huge amount of games last season together as a pairing. Do you see that centre-back position now with Hincapie now unlikely to come to us? Let's be honest about it. Is this still a position you want Tottenham to pursue this window, or do we just need to move on now to the 10 and the winger being the main primary targets, Johnny, for you?
I've lost count how many transfer windows I've said the words, we need a left centre-back. We need a left centre-back. It's like eat, sleep, repeat. And we're going to do it again, potentially. The window's going to close. And Mickey Van der Ven can't play all the games. So what are we going to do? Are we going to put a square peg in a round hole? Or are we going to play Ben Davis? Look, I respect Ben Davis. He's been a fantastic servant. And let's be honest, he runs the book club, which is the most important aspect. But I think we can't ignore this. Look, I really like Vuskovic. We got Takai, who's injured at the moment. He looks about 12 in that photo.
I was just about to say, he looked like a kid.
He's maturing. I think the most important thing is you look at the fact, I think last season, so we look at them as a duo, Romero, Van der Ven. I think they only completed, I think you're looking at combined here, 26 games out of all available. I mean, that would be a worry. You know, that's a worry in itself by the fact it's not a huge amount of games they've completed. And like we've said, to go from Premier League to Champions League, and then you're bringing in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup as well, you can understand why having that additional defender is really, really important. But at the same time, this is it does feel like we've also got other pressing areas. So it will be intriguing to see what Tottenham will do. At the moment,
I'm just going to say, I was just going to say, when you look at the Man City game, the way that Romero steps out from the back to press the midfield, He's absolutely superb. Listen, anyone who doubted Cuti Romero, honestly, give your head a wobble, because this guy's already showing you what it means when he's on song and believes in the project. And you can see he's gone up levels. He's playing with a smile on his face, the responsibility of being a captain. He was great. I mean, Mickey, a little bit, a couple of iffy moments and a couple of good moments, but there is no doubt that we have cover on that right-hand side. Although it's a drop down, we have cover. I just don't feel we've got any world class, or what do I say, world class, Champions League level
on that cover. Yeah,
on that side.
Yeah, we're going to have to see obviously what Tottenham do. Obviously, again, we are now in the final 6 days of this transfer window, so it feels, even though we say it's Daniel Levy's time and this time where he likes to get deals done, it's very hard. It's harder and harder to get deals done of a higher magnitude and high caliber player level when you are getting closer and closer to the end of the window. So I think on that basis at the moment, we're going to have to probably say that Hincapie is off the table. Everything does change, of course, we'll let you know. And we have got already over 10,500 of you that are watching the show live. Thank you ever so much for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. As I said, we'll be here with you until the very end of this transfer window, updating you all the way. So if you're watching, listening for the first time, if you can, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share this out to a wide range of Spurs audience. I'm joined by Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. He runs on a Thursday. Make sure you give him a subscribe over there. You've got Johnny, who runs, I think, daily over at Football Link. Make sure you're giving him a like and subscribe over there. And like I say, Danny, bless him, pops up whenever Danny K is called. And he was called in very, very late for this one. And it might be the first of many, Danny, bless him. So thank you so much for joining us. Look, we're going to bring you the latest on this on-off saga of Savinho, because it felt maybe we're looking at the cryptics in the last 24 hours where maybe there was a potential of a breakthrough. There was an image that got uploaded to Instagram where it was shown that Savinho had a suitcase in the background, but really nothing has massively altered or changed in these last 24 hours. The only thing that we have heard with regards to Savinho is that Tottenham were prepared to pay over 70 million to get Savinho. They've made that clear to Man City again today personally. They told them they want to get this deal done. But the key thing being here, and the reason why there is a massive delay in this, as we've said numerous times, City don't particularly want to sell the player. And also alongside this, if City do sell Savinho, they need to find a replacement. And that is what feels like at the moment is the real delay in any movement for this deal. And I just wonder, Luke, coming over to you, because of the magnitude, again, of the size of the fee involved, the nature of the player, a player that Pep Guardiola has made it very, very clear, really from the first presser he was asked about him, he sees him at City for many, many years to come, doesn't really want to sell, but at the same time, it looks like the player wants to move. The closer this gets, Luke, are you more optimistic or pessimistic this will get done?
Well, I think the first thing is getting the game out of the way. I think there's no chance that they was going to sell him before we play them, because, I mean, it would just be written in the stars. We was already kind of a box to them anyway. But it's only Spurs that can go and target a Manchester City player who literally relinquish any player that wants to leave, and we target the one that they don't want to leave. Like Pep Guardiola's been renowned for it his whole career, where if a player goes to him and goes, actually, I want to leave, he goes, no worries, we'll help you as much as possible. We go for one player and he goes, nah, you're going to stay. So as Danny's already alluded to, it's just typical Spurs. Now it's out of the way. Yes, I am optimistic that we can get it through. I always felt we would get one of Savinho and Eze through the door. I must admit, this wasn't the one I thought it would be. I thought it would be Eze, the one that we got through, but I always felt that one of them would go. They would be the kind of star of the window for us. Yeah. So I do think it will get done. I just hope that this isn't a case where we've spent so long on a deal and then it all falls through. But I have got some faith in this one to go through.
Yeah, I just wonder, coming over to you, Dan, on this one, the fact of the matter is that because we've invested, again, so much time in this deal and there's been no indication that it's been really, truly off at any point, but also at the same time, Dan, it feels like it's never really been truly on. I think this is why, again, there's been such a real frustration. If this doesn't get done now, have we again wasted the best part of 2.5, 3 weeks chasing a player to not get it done? When you think about the fact Gibbs White, that pursuit was around 2.5 weeks. Eze was a good week and a half as well, from what we're hearing in terms of the negotiation. If that Savinho deal does not get done now, how frustrating is that when you're hearing the suggestions that Thomas Frank is in love with the player, he really wants him to come, the player really wants to come to Tottenham with it being a World Cup year, he wants to play regular first-team football. And like Lou says there, this move would be a lot different to the moves Tottenham made in the past. I've said Tottenham seem to target a lot of opportunistic kind of deals, the likes of player or teams that are in financial difficulty, the likes of Forest when it was Johnson, Richarlison when it was Everton, Khannouss when it was West Ham. This one's a little bit different because, again, City don't need to sell him. They don't have to sell him. And Guardiola's made it very clear that he likes the player. So what's your mood in terms of when the window keeps ticking down day by day here? Are you more confident? Are you less confident it gets done, given the size of the deal, the wages that will be involved for Savinho?
I mean, I always felt this deal was going to be the one that would be the one that would get done more than all the other deals, purely because when you've got a player that actually wants to join your club, clearly he wants to play first team football. Clearly, as we've been told, the manager is in love with him and sees him as a star, a superstar in the making, basically. So he clearly wants to be kind of like the main man, one of the main men at a club. And when you play at a club like City, you've got to be part of a squad full of top-class, world-class players. So you're not always guaranteed to get game time, right? And that's just how it works at the biggest clubs, right? Just again, it's the same at Real Madrid, the same at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, all these clubs. It's the same. So I understand. And because for me, why it stood out the most out of any of the deals that I've seen us try to go for in the past is because it looks like it'll be a record deal. And it's because it's not just getting a player from like a Palace or a Newcastle or a lower league team, no disrespect to them, right? For example, and to go to Manchester City and take a top young talent, right? Who, like we said, let's be honest, they don't need to have him sold. But the fact that we all know historically, if a player says they want to leave because they want first team football, Pep's got no problem getting rid of them, because at the end of the day, the truth is, Man City have got so much quality in their artillery, they could deal without not having him in the team, right? Because their squad is so strong. I mean, just look, when you saw the bench the other day, they had Rodri on the bench, they had Phil Foden on the bench, they had so much class on the bench compared to ours. And I know we have City's number, right? That's just historically we have their number. It seems to be like how Chelsea are with us, or how we are with Chelsea, should I say. We're the same to Man City. So it's a one-off game. But in terms of a season, they've got the depth to go the distance in multiple competitions. Whereas we know if we have one injury, it's going to be very difficult for us, especially to a key player. So Savinho, for me, would show me the first sign of Spurs trying to change the way that they bring in players at this football club. Not in the way that we're going to see this consistently, but the fact that they've gone to a City, and hopefully get a player like Savinho with a player like Khannouss and a Paulinho in one window. We haven't seen that before at Spurs.
Totally agree.
I haven't seen that, right? And I think for me, even that would still be the best window I've ever seen. And that's saying that's saying something, considering we still need more, right?
Agree.
But I'd still be happy if it was Savinho that came in, because now you've got two top class players on the wings, right? Who can torment teams. Now, if we don't get Savinho done, I think there's going to be absolute. You see the meltdown that happened with Eze. I think it's going to be worse. And I know
just because of the amount of time Dan spent on the deal.
Just because of the amount of time spent on the deal, just because the fact that he's someone that we actually could get, like realistically we could get. And I think just the fact that we spent so much of this window on this player, and then to not end up with him, and then, which in my opinion, if we don't, I don't think we're going to get someone else. And I think that's the biggest problem for Spurs fans. It's not even the fact that we don't get him, it's the fact that we've done all this work for so long and then we just don't get him, and then I just don't think we're going to get anyone else, and that's the biggest worry for me.
I have to come on to you, Johnny, on this, because you've been with me, bless you, since the start of this saga. I mean, how many times I use the word saga during this transfer window? I've used it far too many times. I think, again, the key is going to be here, if Spurs are going to make a big enough for City to change the internal stance of wanting to keep the plan? I mentioned it earlier. We understand that Ferran Serrano is the man that is behind the scenes really blocking this potential move to Tottenham. And I think also what you can consider about Savinho is that, look, he can play as a 10 whilst, the option might be that he's more favourable on the right. You've then got Khannouss that's able to move inside as well. The worrying thing again would be that if you do miss out on Savinho now with the best part of 4 or 5 days left, I think Danny said this, the quality pool out there significantly drops in terms of then what is left available. So with the hours ticking down, Johnny, with the days ticking down, where are you on Savinho for you now? Are you as confident as what you was at the time, or less confident now? Because we're not hearing too much about the fact that Tottenham keep reiterating to City they're willing to pay over the asking price of 70 million euros. And again, they've gone back to City from what we're led to believe today and told them they want to get this deal done. But it seems like you said at the start of the show, complete utter silence, Johnny.
Listen, I expect to hear EastEnders ending music after each transfer. Don't, because that's just how it feels all the time. Look, yeah. I really focus on the Savinho that was in the team of the season at Girona because, he's playing for a Manchester City team where, number one, it's hard to get in the squad. Number two, when he does play against teams, he'll be playing against teams who are using the low block, so he doesn't get his chance to express himself. Whereas I think at Spurs, he, under Thomas Frank's system, in transition that we saw, with breaking from midfield with Khannouss and Savinho on each side, going to cause absolute havoc. I think somehow I just think that this deal is going to be the one that gets done because the club just can't afford to not get it done. There's also the theory that Manchester City and Pep are just dragging them along in retribution for what happened with Harry Kane. Heard all those stories, but I listen. I don't think they're as petty. Manchester City are as petty as that, nor about in the interview mentioning the 115 charges. Yeah, that wasn't very clever either. How to lose friends and not influence people the right way. But look, I think it will somehow. I think it will get done. For me, it's the 10 that's just as important. And if we can't get the right 10, I'm quite prepared to get Lookman and push him out to the flank and play Savinho through the middle. And then give him the pass protection of Bentancur and Paulinho, or Sarr and Paulinho, or whatever permutation you want to do there. But that would be a frightening attack. I think there's too much disrespect for Lookman, to be truthful. Yeah. 3 very good seasons in a row. In Italy at Atalanta. Who can forget the hat-trick he scored in the final, the Europa League against Bayer Leverkusen? He destroyed them that day. He's a good player. And like I said, he can play on the left. He can play on the right. Should Khannouss get injured, there he fills in that role. And he can play as a false 9. So, but Savinho is the one that we really need to do. I believe we'll do it. We can't afford not to have this left-sided player. We cannot be turning up with Matthias Tell, Brennan Johnson playing on that left-hand side, and I don't know what's going to happen with Manor Solomon. I still think that there's a player there that's worth keeping in the squad, but we shall see with that one. We need 2 players, minimum. We need the 10 and we need the left-sided midfielder. And this one, as the boys have both said and you've said, it's dragged on for long enough for this one not to go through on top of everything else. Look, the thing is, you go to the club, you say, right, this is what I'm going to bid. If they've turned around and said, look, if I was to believe they really did turn around and say, look, we're not interested, we're never selling him, then you've got to drop it.
You've got to move on. That's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to understand. I mean, we would have known now. We've been in this situation now for the last 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I can't believe after what has happened with, again, we've mentioned it, with Eze, with Morgan Gibbs-White, if City are telling us that under no circumstances he's not for sale, I would like to think that we have thought, okay, do you know what, and we've got to move on. But by the fact we are still what we're hearing, trying to get this deal done, then it has to be about purely money, Johnny. Because what else can it be about? It has to be, right? It has to be.
Mean, listen, look, as Pep said, he has to knock on his door.
So is this down then to the player to drive it? Because I think that's been out of the sagas we've seen this summer, out of both Gibbs White and Eze, I think what has become clear is that neither of those players have truly pushed for that move to Tottenham. Let's be honest about it. That has been the case. And look, again, Gibbs White is more of a. Well, Gibbs White, for example, it's a difficult situation for Gibbs White because his wife was heavily pregnant. I think from what we've seen over the interviews, he's been in a difficult position. I think we've seen with Eze really that we weren't his first choice. It's been very made clear in the last couple of days. And I think we've got the closure there and we can move on now. But with Savinho, if he really, really wants this move, he has got to push for it. Because I think, like Luke said in his monologue about this transfer, Pep Guardiola does not normally keep hold of players that want to go. And I think it's down now to the player to really push this. And that, again, that's going to be the key in these next 4 or 5 days, Johnny. I think that's going to be the key.
Can we look at the photo again?
Can I add something to this?
Let me say something. He's got hold of him. He's got hold of him. And what's he saying to him? He's doing the Pep Marinakis, right? Yeah.
No, son. Johnny, he didn't say that. He's telling him to sign for Spurs. He was whispering.
Yeah, no.
He was like, he wanted him to come to Spurs. But I was going to say, Ricky. Sorry, just to add to this, right?
Go for it. Yep.
With this whole Savinho deal, right? I know I don't want to sound like negative about this, but I just can't see why, if Tottenham have stayed in this deal for this amount of time, that like Johnny said, if they had categorically said no matter what's happening, he's not being sold this summer, right? Then I wouldn't have expected them to still be trying to go for this deal and apparently having the confidence that a deal can get done. I just think it's just that, like Johnny said, they're biding their time. They're trying to get this maximum amount of money as they can get for him, taking it to the wire, and I think they'll go. And maybe some of it is that they want a replacement. But if I'm being brutally honest, I don't think that's the biggest driving force of them not wanting to sell Savinho. I just think if they get the money that they feel he's deserved because of his age and because of the potential, then I think he goes. Because I don't think if they don't get like a Rodrigo, for example, as a replacement, that they've got more than enough players in that squad to deal with the loss of Savinho for a season. Yeah,
it's going to be fascinating. Look, we are going to have to squeeze in our final break of this show for our listeners that are on audio. Look, there's nearly over 15,500 of you that are watching us live. Again, thank you ever so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. Again, I think I reiterated this on the previous show. We've had nearly over 1 million views in this last 3-4 weeks. So thank you ever so much for all the amazing people out there that come and say hello at the ground to me, that obviously somehow love this crazy palmy show where I know we can't be on time. Forgive me for that, guys. Forgive me. I know half the time it's the kids, half the time it's me. I'm not going to lie to you, but thank you so much for all your unwavering support. We're joined by the wonderful Luke over at Spotlight on Spurs. Please make sure you go and check Luke out. Please make sure you go and follow Johnny over at Calls at Footballing. You've got Danny, who always pops up here, there, and everywhere. Like I say, guys, if you can for us, keep liking, keep subscribing to the show, share this out to a wide range Spurs audience. Boys, we spoke about the 10s there. Let's keep on the 10s for a second because we've had a couple of updates on the 10s and where we do stand on potential moves. Johnny, you mentioned there Ademola Lookman. This is an interesting one because we are hearing suggestions that in these final few days of the window, he is going to be banded around to clubs. So, look, from our understanding, there's no concrete move yet for him from any club, but he's one that agents-wise are pushing. So you just wonder, as again, to reiterate, 4 or 5 days to go, one to keep an eye on. Johnny, you said you really like the look of this guy, right? Again, he's had Premier League experience, European experience. Could be a decent option to look at come the end of the window, maybe if we're struggling.
Yeah, look, I mean, Lookman was almost nailed on to go to Inter Milan. They offered 35 million euros. Atalanta want 45 million euros. It hasn't happened. Atalanta need to do their business. They're not going to take Højlund back, it doesn't look. So they need to get their business done. They want him to move on. I don't think you're going to get a loan with an option. Personally, I think they'd like to do a clean business. But to buy a player like that, 27 years of age, who's scoring goals in the last 3 seasons, and let's be honest, it's not easy to score goals in Italy. I think a lot of people look at Lookman and they look at his performances in the Premier League. He was very young, you know. He still had something about him. There was something about him. He's busy, and it's his versatility. And like I said before, you could definitely play Lookman on the left-hand side. And if you've got Savinho, there's a possibility to play Savinho through the middle as the 10. Because I think in Thomas Frank's system, it's definitely possible for him to do that. So I think Lookman is a great all-round buy, ticks all the boxes. As I said before, I don't want to repeat myself, left wing, right wing, false 9. When you have injuries and you're filling in positions, you've got a guy that can do all three.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Yeah, let's fill in, because I know, again, Nico Paz has been a name coming out of you, Luke, that I know a lot of fans like the look of, you know, and this deal, again, just on the periphery of it, for those that are looking to it, I think it's such a hard deal to get done, because of the fact, for those that aren't aware out there, Real Madrid own 50% of the player and have a 10 million buyback clause for him, with many believing that he's still a Madrid-ready player, all but in name. And, you know, they have these buyback clause for the next couple of years. Suggestions have been that Tottenham made a final bid for Paz worth an initial 65 million euros plus a further 10 million add-ons. Como decided to reject the bid after consulting with Real Madrid, and Spurs are very unlikely to increase their offer any further. I mean, look, this one, again, it seems such a complicated deal to get done. And if, again, we're looking at a deal with a number 10 in the last 4 or 5 days of a window to try and get over the line, as much as this player is talented, as much as he looks like a really good individual, this to me screams, again, a difficult deal to get done, given the clock is really up against us here. As talented as the kid is, this seems nearly impossible to get done, given the clubs that are involved. Would you agree, Luke?
Completely agree. And I think that's the problem. We've tried to make so many signings where there's so many variables and so many things that can go wrong. And I think that's why we've probably gone down the kind of Prem proven route, because it's just another thing that you can kind of tick off the list. And Lookman kind of falls into that. All right, maybe he wasn't unbelievable in the Prem, as Johnny said, but he's got the experience, he's got the know-how, he knows how it works. And I know that these are extreme cases, but it wasn't bad for Salah and De Bruyne, because they weren't fancied when they were first in the Prem. But when they returned, they were pretty decent players. So I think that that's part of our problem, is that we go to so many unknowns, even if we're spending big money, little money, whatever it is, there's so many unknowns in these transfers, and we need to kind of make sure that we keep to that as minimal as possible. And I think that's part of the problem. Like, we look through the transfers that have been coming in over the last, I was actually talking in a group today about the last 3 transfers, barring this one. We've brought in the window, out of the last 3, we've brought in 1 player that improves that 11. We've brought in loads of players, but only 1 that improves the 11 in Solanke. And there's some that argue that he needs to be upgraded already. So that is our problem, is that our recruitment teams and our recruitment, the players that we go after, they're just not good enough. They're not, either they don't fit the system or whatever. So if you've got 70 million, say, for Paz, I'm sure there are Premier League players that you can go out and get that will be an upgrade on what we are, because I think Paz is going to be a top player, but he's probably going to need 6 months, a year to adjust, to get used to it. Yeah. And he needs to be learning from experienced pros. And that's another factor that we don't necessarily have. We need to start bringing in some of these experienced players. I think we said it backstage. For me, if you've got 70 million, you just go and put that in for a Paqueta. He can play in multiple positions. He knows the league. So if that's the amount of money you're looking to spend, he would be a player that I'd be looking to sign. But yeah, it's a lot of money, and it's just got too many variables at this moment in time. If you had a settled team and you had a really good solid team, and then you was going out and signing these players to bring them in, which is kind of what City sort of do. They kind of bring in the little wonder kids, and they kind of integrate them. But if you're looking for him to come in and be a starter, and whoever comes in is essentially taking on the Maddison mantle. Whoever comes in is going to be put up against, this is the number 10 for Spurs. That's going to come with it some huge pressure. So I like him. Think he'd be a great signing, but it's just not one for now for me.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, I'll go to Danny, then I will come to Johnny. Danny, if I come over to you, just in regards to, again, this number 10 search, just bring it back to Paz for a second. Again, I have to ask you, Danny, are you surprised that we've spent It does. We're getting quite a considerable amount of time chasing this player by, according to all reports, they've gone in for a final bid that's now been turned down. We do know as well they like the look of Akilouche at Monaco. That Spurs reportedly have been tracking for quite a number of seasons. He has the ability to not just play out wide, he can play central as well. Again, he's on the radar of a number of European clubs. This is a player we know Spurs have looked at, although again, it looks like he favours a move to Newcastle. Running out of options here, Dan. We are running out of options. I know, again, people may be surprised. We have seen potentially this week, Kobbie Mainoo could become available in these final few days of the window. The player would like a move elsewhere. That's one to keep an eye on. Harvey Elliott, again, no move for him so far. Is that another one that we should keep an eye on? And again, maybe one left field. Would Tottenham go in for him? Mikkel Damsgaard. We know really Brentford have been ripped apart in the summer in terms of their squad. But we're getting to a point now, Dan, where it feels like we're going to have to branch out in terms of other 10 options now, because with Paz being off the table, no Eze, no Gibbs White, and can I just say an Khannouss as well. We haven't an update on Khannouss. We understand that Tottenham are internally playing down any real interest in the player. So even by that fact that Tottenham are playing down their interest, you know, that list is getting smaller and smaller, Dan.
Yep.
Where do you see him pivoting to next in his terms of this 10 search?
It's hard to say because obviously Nico Paz, right? I think a lot of fans, if they looked at his stats and they actually do some research on him, he's a very good young player. And for what he did last year in Italy with Como, but also if you look at his physical attributes as well, I think he's ready for the Premier League. I think he's built for it in terms of his physicality. And you can see he's got a wonderful left foot. He's got brilliant technical ability. The only thing with him is, I think, kind of what we've all seen in the media is that he does look like he wants to go back to Real Madrid. But the fact that Real Madrid pretty much own half of him technically, it's going to be such an impossible deal to do with a few days left in the window. In other words, because if Real Madrid really wanted to, they could just activate that release clause, buy him back, and then if they wanted to make the money on it, they'd sell him to us. So it wouldn't make any sense from Real Madrid from a financial point of view to let that happen. So I just can't see that happening. I think it's a pipe dream. It would have been a lovely thing to do, but I can't see it happening. Akilouche, or however you pronounce his name. I think he'd be a very good signing. Another, again, very technically gifted person. A lot of top clubs are looking at him. With him, I honestly think it's kind of like that situation we've seen with a lot of players. If the money is on the table and the deal is right, and it's not like 70 million euros over 15 years, then I think we can actually get the player. So I think like it comes down to whether or not Spurs want to act like a big club and go and pay the money, because the problem we've got is now, because we've left it so late, the market is getting smaller and smaller for the actual quality options that we can actually bring in. And then because of that, the other clubs know that we're looking for that player or a player in that position. They're going to keep raising the price. So if they want to go and get something done, they have to act really, really quickly, to be honest with you. And again, Damsgaard, look, I'd take a punt on either one of them, to be honest with you, because even Damsgaard, as much as Brentford have been ripped apart, he has worked with Frank. You've seen what Frank did with him. It took him a couple of years to get into the grips of the Premier League, because he didn't look like the player that we saw in if it was the World Cup or the Euros. I can't remember which tournament it was. He stood out. It was amazing. But once he actually got into like the rhythm with Frank's system and his training and the Premier League, you can see his ability. And again, against, I think was it Villa they played the other day? He looked amazing. And honestly, I think 30-40 million pound, I'd definitely go and take a hit on Damsgaard. If you could go and bring me Savinho and Damsgaard in, I'd say that's a decent window. That's a really good window.
I think now where we are, I think Dan on that point, I think where we are now at this point, 4 or 5 days to go, I think that would be a great end to the window. It really would. Johnny, let me come over. Go on, Dan.
I was just saying, just before with Khannouss, for me, he looks like a technically gifted player, but someone was talking to me about him the other day, and I said I didn't even realize he was playing for Leicester last season in the Premier League, right? And that for me is, if I don't see a player stand out, I'm not going to look at a player or pay attention to him. And for me, I just don't think he's good enough. I think a club like Palace is a club that he should be going to. We shouldn't be competing with Crystal Palace or with, no disrespect to Brentford, or clubs like this. for players that should be going to those clubs, right? Because that's the club that he needs to go to, not a club where is in Champions League challenging for wants to challenge and wants to be a big club.
Yeah,
he's got to go to that next level. Just like Eze did. No one wanted to take a punt on Eze, right? He went to Palace and it took him 3 to 4 years to get to that level. And then he got the big move. And I think that's kind of the path I'd like to see Khannouss go on to see if he can do it in the Premier League. Go to Crystal Palace, be the main man, and then see. But right now for Spurs, it's just not what we need. We need someone who's ready right now. And I know Akilouche is young, but look, Akilouche has played Champions League football and he's proven it in the Champions League. Nico Paz, he's proven it in Serie A, right? That's a tough league. It's not a pushover league, that league. And then with Damsgaard, well, he's proven in the Premier League and he's proven with the manager who made him that player. So look, I'd be more than happy with one of those 3 players. But if it's not one of those, Rick, honestly, I've just got a weird feeling there'll be an unknown name or a name that has not been mentioned in the media.
Yeah.
And in the next few days, it could be one of those things where it's like, bang, Tottenham have done a deal with them out of the blue.
Well, just on that point, Johnny, bringing you in, mate, about the 10s, and this leads us very nicely to the last player of the show, and that's, of course, Morgan Rogers, which I know for some out there are immediately poo-pooing to think, well, how could Tottenham, why would Tottenham be able to bring Morgan Rogers to Tottenham? And again, it's an interesting one because I think for many of us would never have believed Morgan Rogers would be available in this last week of the window. But from what we're hearing, Villa are in a situation where they're going to have to sell one more player, one big player between now and the end of the window to resolve their issues around PSR. And that is why there is this speculation and talk that Villa begrudgingly, they don't want to, reluctantly, may sell Morgan Rogers. And it's been a player that Tottenham have had a close eye on. And with Tottenham obviously failing to get Eze, Gibbs-White, not really getting close to a 10. Could this be the player, Johnny? Could this be the one that Tottenham could somehow put a bid in for and be successful? And what's your gauge as we get into these final few days of the window, John, on this one?
I actually think of all the ones you've mentioned, this is probably the least likely. Yet another Manchester City graduate. I think you could make probably 2 teams in the Premier League of players that have left Manchester City to go on and have, a really good career. If Aston Villa want to make FFP and PSR, their creative Egyptian owner will find a way to circumvent the rules, like sell a homegrown youth player to Saudi Arabia, or do what they did before with Jacob Ramsey being shipped off against his will as a homegrown to Newcastle. The Egyptian owner having strong links with the Saudis, both in Saudi Arabia and obviously the people in Newcastle. I think they're going to release that money and get that money. I don't think is an asset they would have been interested in selling. That's my personal belief. Would I take him? Hell yeah, of course we would. Would Spurs be interested in bidding for him if he was free? Yes. But let's be serious, right? We've wasted weeks and weeks and weeks, months, chasing targets, right, that are totally unrealistic. Let's not waste any more time on unrealistic targets. I'd drive my car to Lucas Paquetá if I could, and bring him in.
Are those other ones out there, Johnny? Because you feel obviously Rogers is not maybe obtainable. When I mentioned to the boys there, the likes of Kobbie Mainoo, Harvey Elliott, Mikkel Damsgaard, of these players, in your opinion, who do you think is in the most likeliest we could get a deal done in these last 4 or 5 days for? They're all tough. Who do you look at and think we could get one done for?
Well, Akilouche, I like him. You should just sign him, as I said before, just for his hairdo. But the fact is that the manager has said he'll only sell one of his creative players, and someone's come in for their other creative midfielder. I keep forgetting his name now, but that might cause a problem. Damsgaard, for me, I can't see them letting another player go. Harvey Elliott has been at RB Leipzig. He's been in talks with them.
Why has that not got done, though, Johnny? Do you think that's not got done because he would like to stay in the Premier League? Is that maybe a reason?
Possible. It's possible.
Yep.
you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Conor Gallagher comes on loan, because he's the type of player who would be very busy, and he's energetic and aggressive. And if you remember,
we know the club like him as well, don't we, Johnny? We know the club like him. They've tried to get him.
And also the fact is, you know, which Conor Gallagher are you getting? Are you going to get the Crystal Palace one, who was playing further forward and didn't stop scoring goals? Or are you going to get the one that was more of a defensive midfielder, captain under Pochettino? It's hard to know. Paquetá, I just think, could you imagine Savinho, Richarlison, Paquetá, right?
Brazilian samba.
And could, oh God, yeah.
We'll be doing dancing. There'll be samba dancing every week, right?
Yeah,
but
100%.
I actually think that the three of them would be an absolute sensation. The only thing is, I've got to say, I'm not sure if Paquetá is Thomas Frank's type of play. He's got more of a language style. He's not, how would you play, energetic, aggressive.
He's a flair player.
Yeah, he's a flair player, but he's not get at him. And I think that might be, you know, what he wants. I wouldn't be amiss, as I said before, to get Savinho and Lookman, and to put Savinho in at the 10.
Yep.
And Lookman in on that left-hand side. Both can play those positions. I think he'd be fantastic as a 10, if I'm honest. Lookman's not a bad passer either. But Savinho can pass the ball, right? There's no two ways about it. And I think if you play him in the system that Thomas Frank would use, I think that's where I'd like to see him personally. I don't want to sign a maybe 10 or a this do, but then until such a time as we get a Kulu or a Maddison back or another 10, I'm happy to go with that. But if I was purring, I would go probably Paquetá and Savinho as my.
Boys, I've got two final questions to ask you all if I can. Before I do, just to let everybody know, we understand West Ham are exploring a move. This could be key for maybe a move of Paquetá. For those that might want to put their ears up here. Bissouma. We understand West Ham are exploring a move for Bissouma in this final week of the window. Look, player that Graham Potter knows very, very well, a key player for him at Brighton. And we understand that he's very, very keen on that move. So keep an eye on that. We understand he is, you know, one that they have a very keen interest in. They want to open talks with Spurs. So just keep an eye on that. We understand Girona are in or coming in for Brian Hill. That won't be a surprise to many out there. Brian Hill wants to leave the club permanently. They actually want Tottenham to terminate Hill's contract. That would allow him to sign him for free. So again, this one we probably expect will get done. I can't imagine Brian Hill will be a Tottenham player between now and the end of the window. And Manor Solomon, Johnny spoke about him earlier, back in training now, although the likelihood is Tottenham expect to move him on between now and the end of this window, which again, we're coming to those final 4 or 5 days. Boys, I've asked you for your perfect 10. Gut feeling now as we stand here, just two final questions to ask everybody. Yes or no answers, really, or name, or give me some names. Who do you realistically think will be that 10? Dan, you mentioned will it be an unknown, you think? It could be an unknown coming there. Tell me what you think.
Could be unknown, but I've got a funny feeling Paquetá could be the one. And I know West Ham fans are saying no, it won't happen. But honestly, Bissouma and money, I just can't see why it won't happen. Okay,
fine. Let's go to Luke quickly. Luke, for you at the moment, as things stands, 4 or 5 days to go. What's your gut telling you in terms of that 10 that we're looking for? Who would you think is most likely to come in?
Paquetá makes the most sense on so many levels. I know what Johnny was saying about him playing in the cam, and I think he'll be brilliant. But I can also see him playing in the 8 for under Frank, especially when you're coming up against teams that are going to sit and defend with a low block, say 5 at the back. You've got him and like a Polinia type. I think that was the whole Morgan Gibbs-White. I thought that was one of the reasons why he looked at him, because he could almost play in that centre midfield role and dictate and be a little bit more of a playmaker in there from deep. So I think that not only do you buy him, and then even if he doesn't play in the 10 all the time, he could move into a different position. Whereas some of the other 10s that we're talking about, when maybe Madders is fit, or are we already looking at upgrading them in a year or 18 months before we've even signed them, sort of thing. So I think Paquetá makes the absolute most sense. And just wanted to touch on the Rodgers thing. We should now be in a situation where we've done all of our business and Morgan Rogers is the cherry on top of the cake, is your Van der Vaart. This is where we need to get to as a club, because imagine if we'd got all of our business done and sorted, and then all of a sudden a Rogers came up as a potential, and you go, if we go and get him on top of what we've already got, it shouldn't be as a last minute, let's try and push him over the line and hope, throw all the eggs in one basket sort of thing. So hopefully in the next couple of years, that's the sort of situation we're in. Whereas this guy is the cherry on top of the cake. He's not the one that's coming in as I said, the last minute kind of buy that we need to push over the line because we're struggling elsewhere.
Okay, final question to you all. Just one answer to this. Give me a number. Luke, how many players we signed between now and Monday's deadline?
2.
Dan, gut feeling?
3.
Bloody hell. I want what you're on. Johnny? Johnny will bring us back down to earth now, I think.
No, listen, we're gonna sign 2. We'll sign Paquetá, and West Ham will threaten to burn down the stadium. Could you imagine? I mean, honestly, the meltdown when they bought Khannouss. I mean, I think the owners might have to leave the country if they sold Paquetá.
That's
the one.
That's the one. If we sign Paquetá and Savinho, I'm going to be samba dancing all the way to the lane at Bournemouth. I'm telling you.
That's the one.
I'll tell you what. Listen, I want to say, guys, can't thank you enough. I know. I said these shows at the moment, it's frustrating because we want to come here and be able to give the fans more hope and more optimism. We're going to get stuff done, but it does feel at the moment where Spurs are in this market, with every deal we're talking about that want to try and get done, there is complications with them all. So all we know really is we are going to be in for an absolute interesting next 4 or 5 days. We've got you covered every step of the way on Last Word on Spurs. Dan, thank you so much. Incredible debut. One of Danny Kyriacou. Make sure you're going to give him a like and subscribe. He's on X, Dan, aren't you? Where can we find you?
I'm on X, yeah. Danny Kyriacou. Find me on X, yeah. Definitely.
Wonderful. Another Greek in the community. Listen, no one with those ones. Dan, you've been a superstar, mate. What a debut. Thank you so much. Luke, thank you so much, mate. I think Luke's become a veteran now. He's only been here 3 times. It feels like it's been 30. By the time he gets put through this window, it will be. And the wonderful Johnny over he opened the window with me. He's got to probably shut it with me as well. The wonderful Johnny over of course, Football Inc. Of course, on Insta, H3232 and Talking Tottenham 1882. Guys, we've been the Last Word on Spurs. Please keep liking. Please keep subscribing. Hit that notification bell. We'll be following you every step of the way. Keep safe and keep well. Let's hope we get some news very, very soon from us all. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, come on, you Spurs.